When I was a student, our work assignment for the day was huge. And when we worked nights, we would be on a floor, a 55-bed floor, with two of us. It was huge. And I always thought to myself, there is someone up there designed to be looking after student nurses. And the thing about it is that not only was it real for us, but it was accepted by us because that's the way it was in those days.
In 1973, the government of the day changed the course of nursing education. Students would no longer attend hospital schools of nursing, but would begin to get their education in an academic environment.
The Ontario government decided that nursing should be moved from the hospital schools of nursing, where it had been more or less a service industry with student nurses doing a lot of hard work for the hospital, into an institute of higher learning. I think they felt that nursing should become more an educational process and less of a service process. When we moved to the college from the hospital schools in 1973, we not only took in our first St. Lawrence College student nurses who graduated in 1975, but we brought with us student nurses from Hotel Dieu and KGH who had completed their first year. So they had their second year here at the college, and they graduated in 1974.
With the final class of students having entered hospital schools, it was time to shift focus entirely to the college. At the same time, hospital nursing assistant programs moved to the colleges. This was an exciting time for students entering into the program, as innovative ways of program delivery were being experimented with, and the concept of modularizing the program gained favor. The move was also good for the colleges.
When I commenced the Diploma nursing program, it was in 1976, half of our class were in what was called the modular program, and the other half were in the traditional program. And I think it was just random selection who went into which of those two programs. And I was one of the ones who graduated from the traditional program. They actually did more self-learning than we did in the traditional program. And quite honestly, being in the traditional program by far would have been my choice if I got to pick which of the two. So I felt really lucky that I was in the traditional program as opposed to the modular program.
I started in '75. It was a very intensive 2 full years. You went through the summer. There was a 5-week break, that's all. I was in the modular program, and I think it was kind of an experimental traditional versus modular. There were absolute expectations and objectives and learnings before you entered the classroom, and that's what I loved about it.
As true today, nursing jobs can come and go, and the climate at this time was not favorable for new graduates.
In '78, it was a bad year to graduate as a nurse, and many of our graduating students went away, mostly to the States.
At the time that we graduated in 1978, there wasn't a lot of jobs available. In fact, I had gone to some interviews for jobs in the US and was seriously considering going to the US to start my career in nursing.
The year I graduated, I think we had a class of 63 or 64, and 4 or 5 of us only remained in Kingston. Everyone else left. And there were very, very, very few jobs.
Going into a new program at a time of scarce job opportunities were just 2 of the obstacles that these first graduates faced. Through their actions, these graduates would answer the question, is this new way of educating nurses going to work?
The first graduating class probably, although they didn't realize this was going to happen to them, probably had a lot to contend with in the way of attitude from the general public. I think they felt that our new nurses are going to have to require a lot of mentoring. We had a lot of PR to do, and we worked really hard to make sure that our students had good clinical experiences.
The first graduating class of 1975 was left with these wise words from Una Ridley, the chairman of the Health Services Department. It is my greatest wish for you that you never forget that the patients you serve are first and foremost individuals. They are someone's mother, father, sister, brother, and child. I wish that you, the diploma graduates who are the first from this college, will, through the quality of your work, set an example for future graduates to follow. And they did just that. As the program continued to grow into the 80s, modifications were made to both the courses and the structure. Small group learning was found to be too expensive, and the formal modularization of the program ceased, reverting back to more traditional methods of teaching. The result was larger sections and classrooms that were full of diversity.
Just coming straight out of high school, I just thought anybody going to college is all going to be the same age kind of thing. But there was girls that had done degree programs. They had gone to university. They couldn't find what they wanted, so they came into nursing. The group, because we were divided into clinical groups, it was a good mix of people, but we weren't all just at a high school.
I went into university to teach, and when I graduated in 1981, teaching jobs were even scarcer than nursing jobs. And so I went into nursing as a second career. There were several mature students in that group. Several of us had been to university initially before coming on to college. We were pretty focused and, interested in doing well academically. I remember it being a really, I don't know if I'd call us energetic, but certainly a driven bunch.
Things were good for students entering nursing at this point in time. Job opportunities had come back, and finding employment upon graduation proved to be much easier than in the previous years.
Well, I was fortunate. When I graduated from nursing, things had just started to open up. There were full-time positions at the hospital. Most people who obtained those positions had consolidated on the floor and then joined the float pool, but when a position came available on the floor where you had consolidated, there were often opportunities for hires.
As soon as I graduated, I was offered a job, and I started employment at KGH. I worked, my consolidating session was on Victory 1, which was orthopedics, and I worked there.
While students were finding jobs easier, the times were becoming increasingly difficult for faculty. Unmanageable workloads prompted provincial strikes, which achieved a provincial formula that would define teacher workload. Despite these difficult times, the faculty's passion for nursing and their love of teaching students remained.
You can teach a lot about nursing in the class. You can get the theory and the science of nursing, but it's very difficult to get the art of nursing anywhere else except with the patient.
I have very good memories of my nursing instructors. I remember having a class in professionalism. It was taught by Pat Nekas, who was professional to the end of her fingertips. And she really raised the bar for me of what being a professional nurse was, that it simply wasn't about completing tasks. That it was about seeing the patient in their vulnerabilities and advocating on their behalf.
Clare Rayner, she was one of those people that was very influential. She was understanding, she was compassionate. She cared for you as a student and as a future nurse, and she empowered you. And Clare always said that you need to be professional, you need to look professional, that you are going to be a registered nurse, that your role is to care for those patients, to be their voice, to be their advocate.
The cap was a pain in the neck.
The year that I graduated, it was 1986, I'm positive, that they stopped wearing the cap. I was so happy to take that thing off because it got in the way. Now, patients loved it because they knew who you were, but that's what name tags are for.
Oh yes, the uniforms. I met my husband when I was just graduating, and he loved my uniform.
I loved nursing uniforms, and I think they have an enormous place for many reasons. I always wore white. I wore it for a reason. You can Javex white. So it didn't matter what you encountered in the day, your uniform was sterilized at the end of it.
Entering the 90s, it became clear that this was not the best of times to get into nursing. Changes were coming, and many nurses were left feeling unappreciated.
During the 90s and all the healthcare cuts, and that's, I think, when nurses were devalued, and it was anybody can do your job. And they have found out that no, that's not true. Because a nurse was a nurse is a nurse. And that line we heard over and over again. No area, except I think the OR, was put, because you need an OR course to do that, was put aside.
I went through KGH and Hotel Dieu merging as a nurse. I do not have any happy memories from that time. And that was a time when they took nurses from ear, nose, and throat and put them in orthopedics, and they took the orthopedic nurses and put them in cardiology.
I graduated in '96 when Hotel Dieu and a lot of the acute cares were closing. So my last day as a nursing student, I closed Johnson 2 at Hotel Dieu. I packed the Christmas tree up and unplugged the phones.
Even during these uncertain times, there were still many people who were committed to their desire of becoming a nurse.
When I was in high school applying for nursing, I went home crying to my parents saying, the counselor says that I am never going to get a job. I should do computers or something else. And my mom said, if that's really what you want to do, that's what you should do. And so I put my head down and I said, no, I want to be a nurse. I don't care if I have to move to Timbuktu, that's what I'm going to do. And I worked hard and I was able to become a nurse.
Through these years, revisions continued to be made within the nursing program. In 1993, as a result of changes to standards of practice, the title of nursing assistant changed to practical nurse, and the program extended accordingly. A shift was coming, one that was as large as the decision in '73 to move the hospital schools of nursing to the college. The new millennium would finally witness what had been talked about for years.
I remember in our one of our courses, the big thing was the year 2000, everybody was going to have the degree. And it was going to be grandfathered in. If you didn't have it, you'd still be able to work. But everybody would have to have the degree. Now, it took a little bit longer to do that. But we were talking about that like in '83.
We were back then, in fairness, legislated. You know, St. Lawrence College was legislated to move nursing into the college program. And in transition, they've legislated baccalaureate in nursing now for entry to practice.
The change from diploma to degree is profound. It really is. It's the level of expectation of the students is higher, primarily in academia. Degree students have much more in the way of assignment work and group work and interviewing and all of that.
The preparedness of the diploma nurse was probably equal to what I see now. In terms of client understanding, I think that we came out as diploma-prepared nurses with a sound knowledge base that was equal to our counterparts from the university. The piece that was missing from my experience was research, that we didn't cover that when I was a student. And I actually went back and completed that at the university level simply because we were moving toward an evidence-based practice, and I wanted to be able to read and understand research and be able to apply it to my practice.
The differences between the program when I took it in the nursing diploma program, the focus was nursing skills, hands-on care. The theory of why we did what we did was very important. It was the root of why we did things, and I think that was a very strong emphasis. But we improved our quality of care, and that's what we saw as improving future nursing. The difference with the BSCN, they still focus on those points, but they try to do the Florence Nightingale approach of how can we change the future? So it's more their statistics. And Florence Nightingale was someone who was very strong. She was a mathematician who thought statistics are, okay, this is what the statistics were when we tried this, let's try this, and did we improve or not? And that's how she saved so many people in her efforts over the years. Research, exactly what she did was figure out the research that was necessary to make change, and the BSCN program does draw that emphasis more now. I see the importance of them because if we do want to make change and improve nursing in the future, we have to reflect on what we have and how we can get to that next level of professionalism and quality of care.
The 2-year was a milestone because prior to that it had been, I believe it was a 1-year program. And the year that I applied to come back to school, it was a second career for me. I had applied on the basis that it was to be a 1-year program. It was wonderful. The 2-year program was great. I think it did prepare for many changes that were to come and many changes that were happening at that time in the world of practical nursing. The scope was certainly broadening for the working RPN at that time, and therefore the 2-year program had to be put into place to meet the expanding scope of the practical nurse in the world of nursing. We knew that it was new. We knew that new things were being tried. We knew that things that we were learning in the nursing labs, all the hands-on things, there were things being taught and practiced by us that hadn't been taught to practical nursing students in the past because of the growing scope of practice.
These students were witnessing firsthand a critical point in the evolution of nursing education.
When I graduated, I was a member of the first graduating class of the 2-year diploma program. And that was big, because I can remember at convocation, this is just a little story, I can remember at convocation, being my surname starting with A, I was the first person to receive my diploma, and the whole class cheered. And I thought, that's very emotional, it really is. But I think it was just such a celebration of the fact that we'd all made it. And here we were embarking on who knows what. I mean, who knows where everybody was going to end up. But it was a big deal. And it wasn't that I was overly popular at all. It was just simply because we all were going somewhere and we didn't know where we were going, but we knew that things were going to change.
Change. It is something that has been a constant visitor to the nursing profession over the years, and one that must be embraced as nursing continues to move forward.
I think that some of the best holistic nursing I did was on my knees bathing someone, where I did health teaching. I listened to their concerns. I prepared them for discharge home, both emotionally and physically. When we have fragmented nurses and we have parceled off some of the what we would term basic tasks, and we became focused only on not the whole person, but doing fragments of that. I think we lost a great deal in nursing.
I think the whole thing with nursing, it's not stagnant. It changes continuously, and you either change with it or you end up going out of the profession.
Nursing is a wonderful profession. The opportunities are endless. The opportunity to touch the lives of others is such a privilege.
A fundamental, important piece for someone who wants to pursue nursing as a career. I think you really genuinely have to like being in contact with the public and people.
It's a job that you get so much satisfaction out of, and there's so many opportunities now for a nurse. It's not just working at a hospital. You can branch out.
People ask me frequently, especially my own classmates, Clare, what are you doing still teaching? And I said, you know what? I'm passionate about nursing. And I love to be around students because they inspire me. They really do. And I said, you know what? At my age, I don't do one thing I don't want to.